I'm into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and please ignore my television behind me. It'll power off pretty soon. And today, we are going to react to San Francisco 49ers day 2 of OTAs. It was the first day the media was able to attend OTAs. I was in attendance myself. I don't know if you saw on my Twitter account, which you can see down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, it's 49ers_access. I posted the video that's been circulating, has over 300,000 views on Twitter, showing Trey Lance's what seems like to be mechanical fixes. We'll dive into that today. Who were some winners? Maybe even some people I saw struggled on. Again, it's day 2, the first day the media can see OTAs, but we'll dive into everything about OTAs, including one message I believe the San Francisco 49ers sent not only the fans, but also the media when it came to who they still believe is the starting quarterback of the team. Again, this is the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett. And before we dive into everything OTA related, I want to ask you to leave a like, leave a review, tell your friends about the show. We're hopefully going to go to every single available OTAs and training camp. And if you want to go to OTAs, if you want to go to a game this year, I would oblige you to use our promo code 49ers Access, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Save yourself $20 off your first purchase and support the show in the meantime. Anytime you can get a discount's a win for you, and a win for you then becomes a win for myself, and a win for myself returns back to you a win as well. It's a win, win-win. So let's dive into OTAs, and I want to first dive into who wasn't there. Now, of course, you're going to have a handful of guys, usually veterans, that are not going to be attending the first few days of OTAs. And there were about 5 for the San Francisco 49ers. The first one being Nick Bosa. He told David Lombardi, or Lombardi found out some way, somehow, that he was going to stay in Florida, which is common for Nick Bosa. It's where he works out in the offseason. So he's going to stay there for the first couple of days of OTAs and eventually report for training camp. But in Bosa's situation, it will be interesting to see how his contract negotiations play out. Is he someone who does indeed stay away until they get that contract done, or is it going to be a similar situation like Deebo Samuel and Fred Warner and George Kittle, where once he gets into camp, they say, okay, bring your agent, let's sit down and hammer this thing out. So Nick Bosa not in the building, still in Florida for day 2, technically day 1 of media availability OTAs. Also, Deebo Samuel not there, Trent Williams not there. Javon Hargrave, the big free agent signing for the San Francisco 49ers, not in attendance for day 2 of OTAs. And Talanoa Hufanga, I think many would say was kind of the like, he's not here really. Out of all the guys you would assume might not be there, I think Hufanga was on the bottom of my list, but he was not in attendance. He was at the charity kickball game with the San Jose PD a few days before OTAs, so that could easily be an excused absence. Don't worry about it. I'm sure he will be back very soon for OTAs. Hufanga loves to practice. So those 5 guys were not there for the San Francisco 49ers. Also, some housekeeping. Juaun Jennings worked on the side field. He had some tightness, as Kyle Shanahan said in his post-practice press conference. He did not take part in team drills or individual drills with the team on the side, along with Mooney Ward and Dre Greenlaw, who did not work with the team as well. They were also on the side getting some work in. One other thing that I saw was last year's undrafted free agent DB Quantrez Knight was on the sideline for the majority of the OTAs in practice in a cast on his right hand. He did not take part in any team drills, obviously. But I did ask him after OTAs, hey, saw you have the cast on. What's up with that? He said he was fine. He said he'll be back very soon, so no reason to worry about Quantrez Knight. But I will say this, is that I and let's be honest here, my eyes usually don't go to, hey, that's Quantrez Knight. No knock on him, but the likelihood he was going to make the team last year was very slim, and this year also slim. I wish him the best. That being said, I do want to shout him out because he had phenomenal energy on the sideline. He was on the sideline with the defense, calling out plays, kind of, fake lining up as a DB across from the receivers they had out there. He was very much a young player who could not be on the field, acting as if he was on the field. And that's not seen very often. Most guys who are hurt just sit there, kind of take things in, talk to the coaches, talk to their teammates. Quantrez Knight said, no. I am going to do everything I can, call out plays, help my DBs next to me. Like, he's a full-on team player from what I can tell. Again, just in one day of 2023 OTAs. Guys like Fred Warner, he was more of kind of the quiet, silent observer of the practice. He didn't do much. He did not join guys like Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle as leaders who were on the field for OTAs in day two, really. He kind of sat back and observed and kind of helped teach silently and kind of overlook the entire practice while guys like D. Winters and Jalen Campbell kind of got their first taste of what being in the NFL and being in an NFL camp looks like. With all that being said, Brad Graham of the SF Niners put out some questions, and I figured, okay, if Brad is asking these questions on Twitter, then I'm assuming many of you out there want to hear the answers to these questions. And his first question was, where was John Feliciano lining up at? Right guard was where he played the majority of his time in New York. He was brought in to kind of be the Daniel Brunskill replacement, and that's exactly what he was. Feliciano lined up at right guard. Spencer Burford also was the same right guard. Feliciano took second team snaps, while Burford took first team snaps, and Colton McKivitz took first team right tackle snaps. Eric Armstead did not line up at edge. It was very much an interior day for Eric Armstead. Now, we will see if once Javon Hargraves comes into camp, will that change? We don't know. Kyle Shanahan himself said the first couple of days of OTAs, it really is getting your base offense and defense down. I'm going to assume their base defense is Bosa on the outside, Jackson or Farrell on the outside, with Hargrave and Armstead playing inside. That's what they're working on here. He did not take snaps at the edge. Jordan Mason, many fans, kind of a fan favorite running back. He was taking third string running back snaps. I think that's where many fans, including myself, have him on the current depth chart. We talked last week of players on the roster bubble. I listed Ty Davis Price. He was taking fourth string snaps, so could be an uphill climb for him. But again, it's day one, day two of OTAs for the Niners. A lot can change in that time. But to give you an inside look as to what is happening at practice, Jordan Mason is your right now third string running back, and Ty Davis Price is your fourth stringer at the time being. Also, Danny Gray, last year's third round pick at receiver, didn't do much once Trey Lance got hurt. That was week 2. So really didn't do much all of the season. I believe his like one lone target was against Seattle week 2 when Garoppolo just came in and they were trying to basically punt on fourth down, but didn't actually want to punt. So Danny Gray, what is he doing? Should be hopefully a big year for him with Trey Lance potentially back in the fold at quarterback. He has to show up this year with guys like Debo and Ayuk and Jennings at times battling injuries, and having a burner like him on the field can be a big impact against defenses when you have an offense that really can function at the highest level inside the numbers. So what was Danny Gray doing? Well, he was getting first string snaps, but that's only because guys like Debo Samuel weren't there, and Juaun Jennings essentially had tightness, was on the sideline doing his own work, and then observing later on in team drills. So he got first string quote unquote snaps by default. And we'll dive into a little bit more as to what I thought of Danny Gray, because again, it's day 2. Stock is kind of just like he really isn't doing much. Again, it's one practice that can easily change once they can start making contact, once there's a pass rush, like once things really pick up in training camp and preseason, we will see. But as of right now, again, day 2, Danny Gray really wasn't that impressive. And I'll dive into a little bit more of what I mean here in a second. Another question Brad Graham has was, what was Drake Jackson doing? A lot of fans, including myself, saw Drake Jackson hit that rookie wall last year, but have a lot of hype for him coming into this year. Now, some fans are saying 10 sacks, some are saying 7. If you can get 7, great. But a lot of fans are also saying we need another edge rusher. I am also one of those fans. We just saw Marcus Golden get picked up today by Pittsburgh. Clowney's still out there and Ngakwe's still out there. They missed on Zadarius Smith via trade with the Vikings. So a lot of fans have high hopes or at least expectations for Drake Jackson coming into this year. When I saw Drake Jackson, I said, oh my goodness, that is not the same player. He put on about 20 pounds since last year. I know he's been in the facility every single day, as Kyle Shanahan said during his offseason press conferences, and that shows. Drake Jackson looks bigger. He looks stronger. He looks like a defensive end, where last year, because he played this hybrid linebacker defensive end role at USC, he was kind of a tweener. He really wasn't, his body itself didn't have a defined role. He was still trying to kind of find his NFL body, and he has found his NFL body. It's year 2 for Drake Jackson. The expectations are high, and again, based off 1 to 2 practices, I've only seen 1, so has everybody else. Drake Jackson does at least look the part of a hulking, shredded out, muscular defensive end opposite Nick Bosa. So a lot of good, some interesting to definitely keep an eye on. Tydavis Price, 4th-string running back. Jordan Mason, number 3 running back. Danny Gray taking 1st-string reps. What does he look like once Deebo Samuel and Jennings are back in the fold? We'll definitely see. Chris Conley, a veteran receiver, was also taking 1st-team snaps. I'm assuming, again, that's just because guys like Deebo and Jennings were not in or attending or actually taking part in team drills. But I do want to dive into here, because San Francisco, we know the quarterback situation is crazy. Every single year, whether it was Garoppolo, Lance, Purdy, now it's Sam Darnold in there, they can never escape the quarterback situation. It's a topic of almost every single podcast, every single sports show, Fox Sports, ESPN. Really, the Niners quarterback situation has the entire world kind of sitting here waiting to see what actually happens with it. And when I was at OTAs, and I've been to plenty of training camps last year, usually you have an idea. Somebody will have an idea. They'll talk to the PR and say, hey, who's talking today? And day 1, it's usually Shanahan. And you would expect in a big day like this, where there's tons of TV there. I mean, it may have been the most packed media room I've ever been in a long time. Joe Fonzie was there, ABC was there, KPIX was there, Sacramento TV was there, all the beat writers were there. I was there for radio, KMBR was there, 95.7 The Game was there. Everybody was there, wanting to get a glimpse of Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. And so you assume Lance and Darnold will talk. They'll introduce themselves. They're supposedly splitting team reps. But the second person the PR team trots out, the second person the San Francisco 49ers chose to speak, wasn't Trey Lance and wasn't Sam Darnold. It was Brock Purdy. And it's funny because nobody expected that. It was a complete surprise. And I was with John Dickinson from 95.7 The Game, a coworker of mine, and we all kind of stopped and were like, oh, we're getting Brock Purdy today. And I thought that was a clear-cut message to the media, to the fans, and maybe not a direct shot at, Lance or Darnold, but it was more of a reminder of like, hey, look, like, how often does a hurt quarterback that will likely not take, reps until training camp, you hope, might not be ready by week 1, you hope. Why is he taking press conferences? Like, I was at training camp last year, and I understand the thought process was Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be here. He's not going to be, on the team. They're hoping to trade him. But every single day that quarterbacks talked, it was Trey Lance first, Trey Lance first, and Trey Lance first. That was the message. Hey, he's our starting quarterback. He's the first person you are going to speak to after Kyle Shanahan. There's a level of importance here. It goes Shanahan and Trey Lance. To me, the message was very and abundantly clear that, okay, it's Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. It was abundantly clear that that was the message they were sending, in my opinion. Now, obviously, look, he ain't healthy, but we did get some news saying he is likely going to begin throwing next week. Now, many fans will say it wasn't a report, and that was kind of the wishful thinking of Kyle Shanahan, and it's kind of both, where we don't know the extent of how much he'll be throwing, but Purdy did say he can lift weights now, and he's getting healthier. And so this is the natural progression from not throwing to kind of a lightweight throwing of the towel, now throwing the football again. And if it takes and he's feeling good, like Brock Purdy said, his arm feels really good, like he's going to eventually progress to being healthy. Now, I know Shanahan said the plan is to hopefully have him out there by week 1. He'll begin throwing again. Purdy kind of pushed back on that. And even Shanahan himself said, only God knows, because anything could happen. I mean, the quarterback luck this team has had is enough for Kyle Shanahan to say, I have no idea. Like, come on. Like, it could be yes, it could be no. I have no idea if we're going to be alive come Saturday. And so I know Shanahan kind of was like, yes, the hope, the thoughts, the prayers are that he's ready by week 1. We want Brock Purdy to be the starting quarterback of this team come week 1, but we'll see. That was the message of Shanahan's, press conference, really. But with Purdy speaking after him, it was abundantly clear that in the front of Kyle Shanahan's mind, he is the starting quarterback. In the mind of John Lynch and the rest of the organization, top to bottom, that Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback of this team. And it's funny because I know fans want to give Trey Lance a chance. I want to give Trey Lance a chance, and we'll dive into what I thought of his performance in day 1, day 2 of OTAs in the practice I saw. But sometimes, and look, he will get that chance to, the door might be closed currently, but he can kind of slide it open and say, okay, like we have a crack, we have a nudge, we have a foot in the door. That'll take place in OTAs. Like, if you build upon, and Kyle Shanahan said this in his press conference, look, like, I'm not looking for, arm talent in OTAs. I'm looking for who's making the pro, QB1 plays. Who's making the smart play, the right play, not who's going out there and making the spectacular play. And I think that, which might surprise many of you, I think Trey Lance was that guy at day 2 of OTAs. Now, again, it's day 2. Like, we have a long way to go. We have 3 months before August, which is preseason. Like, we have 4 months until, the season opens in Pittsburgh, right? So we have a long way to go, but in a very short period of time, I do think Trey Lance, if you want to say he won day 2 of OTAs, I think he did. But back to Brock Purdy, it was abundantly clear that the message was, he's our starting quarterback. Do not forget. Like, I know he's back there doing, warming up, and you don't see him out there on the field, but hey, our starting quarterback is going to talk today, and he's going to talk first. Like, they rolled him out there and were like, hey, do we have to remind you who our starting quarterback is? But going into the rest of the quarterbacks here, because look, you can't evaluate a quarterback who isn't playing. And that was the hard thing to discuss when Trey Lance came into the NFL in 2021, and even part of the offseason in 2022 that led up to him starting against the Bears and the Seahawks. That same, at least for now, goes with Brock Purdy. We cannot evaluate him until he starts throwing and gets on the field again. Like, once Brock Purdy takes those first few snaps in team drills, like, you are going to then at that point ramp up the scouting report and the evaluation. At this moment, they only have 3 quarterbacks that are throwing the football, and only 2 of them, being Trey Lance and Sam Darnold, technically matter because only 1 or 2 of those guys can and will potentially start this year for the San Francisco 49ers. So let's dive into, what I thought of Trey Lance's mechanics, because we heard all offseason, and really it kind of built up recently when Matt Barrows of The Athletic reported that he'd been working with Patrick Mahomes and Jeff Christensen, and Lance had kind of had a sufficient kind of the light bulb clicked really for him when it came to his mechanics, and everybody wanted to see how do his feet look, where's his arm placement, is that ball too high, is there a hitch still, and really. I think Cam Inman had it on Twitter. He had the comparison. And look, it's tough. Like, everybody throws the football differently. Whether it's baseball, football, everyone has what makes them comfortable, right? But I think it was abundantly clear that Trey Lance's mechanics, and Kyle Shanahan kind of hit on this, that yes, they had been halted when it came to the progression, how to fix it. When the finger broke, that hurt his, how they could grip the football. When his leg snapped last year, that hurt how he could, where his hips sat, where his stance was. And so I talked about it last week, how if that's fixed, and we shall see, and we did see yesterday on Tuesday, that all he has to do is go out there and play football. And I am happy to say, and I guess you can say happy to report, that the mechanics did look better. Now, what I mean by that is, he wasn't, stretched out too long with his stance. And again, Shanahan said this himself, that, he was too wide. You need to get compact. Whether it's, I know baseball and football are so different, but they'll tell you in baseball too, hey, like, when you're pitching, when you're hitting, we don't need the herky-jerky, the left and right, the up and down, because once that pitch comes, your hands, everyone's hands have to get back to the same spot. They have to get back right behind the ear, loaded up and ready to attack. Same thing with football. Yes, you are moving much more. You have a 3, you have a 5, you have a 7-step drop back. There's much more, nuances to football when it comes to playing quarterback than baseball and hitting a baseball, or at least different nuances. Trey Lance's mechanics, that hand was up higher, ready to go, like ready for a quick release. The stance was much more compact. Now, of course, in live reps, we shall see what that looks like, when he has a pass rush in front of his face and whatnot. But I can say, at least, in practice, at least with no pressure in his face, when he doesn't have the ability to revert back to his bad mechanics, you could say, he looked better. He looked good. Like, a lot of times it was more of like, at least the last couple of years in training camps and practices, it was okay, like, you have this ultra physically talented player in Trey Lance, but he's kind of still learning how to do the whole quarterback thing correctly. Throw correctly, do the reads, run. Like, again, ultra talented, but still learning. And that's what you get when you have a really young player like Trey Lance. But now it seems like, okay, you have, 2.5 years really, or at least, this is your third off season under your belt. Your mechanics should be better. And they look a lot better. Like, he looks like, just from standing in, the quasi, pocket, I guess you could say, behind an offensive line, throwing to receivers with defensive backs and linebackers covering them with, little to no physical, touching. Like, Trey Lance did look like, out of the 3 quarterbacks that were out there on Tuesday, the best quarterback of the 3. Now, diving into that a little more, you could see that there was the need, or maybe there was this kind of sense of a reacclimation process for Trey Lance. A lot of what I saw was dump offs, quick outs to Christian McCaffrey, a quick out to Chris Conley. These kind of these little like dump offs here or there. He wasn't pushing the ball down the field. It was more of like, okay. And I will say this, although it was day one, day two of practice of OTAs, he did a really good job. Granted, again, no pass rush, no blitzing. He did a really good job of going through the progressions. Okay, my first progression isn't there. My second progression isn't there. Finding the open man after going through everything. Now, again, once there's a pass rush, that has to get faster. But that goes back into my point of there did seem to be this kind of reacclimation project for him back on the field, facing live defenses to a certain extent, taking the easy play rather than forcing a play. He did force one play. It was kind of a, he's my last read. Everyone else is covered. Kyle Juszczyk, just throw the football. What's the worst thing that happens? You can't have a dead ball come practice time. Just throw it and see what happens. And it was almost picked off by Curtis Robinson. But again, guys weren't wearing helmets during that time period. It was more of a just, I can't waste a play, so I might as well throw it to me. So I can't knock Trey Lance for that. But again, it did seem like it was more of a kind of a, smoothly, put your feet back into the fire. You're going to be okay. Just kind of feel out everything first, make your first reads. If it's not there, just find an open person. Don't try anything too crazy. And I'm hoping and I'm assuming that, once he gets more into everything and once OTAs and training camp builds back up, he will do that. He'll take more chances because his counterpart, Sam Darnold, was seemingly unafraid. and that's not always a bad thing because you could tell that Sam Darnold, at least me kind of, putting my own opinion on things and through my lens, was that Trey Lance is trying to kind of get his feet wet again and feel out playing quarterback in the NFL against five defenses. It has been almost a whole year. And even then, there's so little experience in that, year where you can really take it to, I don't know, what it is, 4.5, 3.5 games in the NFL played. That's not even counting so little in college. Like Trey Lance deserves that time period to kind of get his feet back into the fire. Whereas Sam Darnold was like, look, I played last year. I almost went to the playoffs last year. I have everything to lose by not going out here and freaking gung-hoing it and really just going out balls to the wall from day one. And you can tell that he was doing that. You can tell from, the first snap in team drills, he was letting that thing rip. Now, yes, I will kind of give you two examples of the good and the bad, where, and this kind of goes into my Danny Gray, what I saw of Danny Gray, because Danny Gray burnt. I mean, this ran right by rookie Darrell Luter Jr. on the left hash on the outside towards the sideline. Just blew right by him. And Darnold put a pretty ball right to him, and Gray jumped and dropped it. That's not on Darnold. It was a good play. He was willing to push the ball down the field. But other plays, and there were countless plays, like 3 or 4 or 5 of these things, where he was throwing the ball behind people, into coverage, just looked like timing was off, which, again, to be fair to Sam Darnold, with time, with more practice, with the new receivers he has, and a new offense, which he admitted he's still learning, which makes a ton of sense, the timing will improve. Now, you have to ask yourself, if you're Kyle Shanahan coming off of, again, day 2 of training camp, day 2 of OTAs, what is your thought process? Are you saying, wow, the guy that had his, bad timing and, but made some nice throws here or there in Sam Darnold? Or do you prefer someone like Trey Lance who made the safe play, maybe did the right thing, and is kind of trying to feel himself out again? I would prefer Trey Lance in that case, but again, we have a long way to go. But I will say this, that despite Sam Darnold's, maybe you can say weaknesses for lack of better terms, when it came to his performance in OTAs in day 2, the mistakes that he made will, to me, kind of clear themselves up with time because he did make some nice throws. He really did. There was a nice play to Tay Martin on the left sideline. Again, that throw to Danny Gray. But Darnold did also fumble a snap. He also, again, was throwing behind a ton of receivers where you're like, okay, dude, like Braden Willis made a phenomenal catch, rookie at Oklahoma, 7th round pick. Like Darnold threw behind him across the middle of the field, where I can argue that that's the worst place to do so because it's usually packed full of linebackers and safeties behind your receivers. And Willis made a phenomenal catch. He's running over the middle. He stopped. Ball was behind him. He dove backwards, caught it one-handed. It was a great catch. You can see it in the Twitter video the team put out. It was a great catch and a great play, but it was a bad throw. It was a really bad throw. And in a game, you might be able to get away with that, but the likelihood is not. And so, again, is that a timing thing or is that just who Sam Darnold is? It might be a mixture of both. He's very turnover prone, which we did see that, but I do believe that with more practice and time with the receivers and the offense, some of that should clear itself up. And of course, with Trey Lance, again, just like you can tell a lot, and I've said it plenty of times here, how someone feels in the press conference. Are they confident? Are they feeling good about themselves? Like Trey Lance came into the press conference and his first words were, "I'm back." Like you can tell he was so excited. He even said himself that the injuries, not playing a lot really hurt him mentally. And that, he was finally having fun playing football again because one, he actually can play health-wise, and two, like I'm sure this kind of feels like not a last hurrah for him, but more so of like the culmination of all the hard work, all the time sitting on the bench, all the injuries. Like this is finally my year. Purdy's hurt. I can really jumpstart my career here. And I do think that's just trying to kind of dive into what he feels like. You can tell that there was this eagerness of like, we're finally playing football again. I can get back out there and play. It's a process. We'll see how it plays out, but you can tell that he really was excited to go back out there. Whereas Sam Darnold, look, I haven't watched many Sam Darnold press conferences. The only real thing I've heard from him is I'm seeing ghosts, right? It's kind of the only thing I've heard or really seen of Sam Darnold, but it did feel like he was a little overwhelmed, and maybe that was the initial awkwardness of a first time press conference. Whereas, last year, like I sat in those Trey Lance press conferences and was like, okay, like this kid has the poise, the confidence. He feels like, at least mentally and how he carries himself as a starting caliber quarterback. Whereas, I don't want to judge anybody off, my first impression, but it didn't really feel like, Sam Darnold was like, yeah, I'm a starting quarterback. It was like, oh yeah, I play in the NFL, a new team, you gotta figure things out, and like there was this kind of like, you guys know my past, I know my past, like this might be my last shot, so just go out there and kill it. Like it really felt like from like maybe it's just me. When you look into somebody's eyes, you can get a really good read on how they feel. Like I don't want to, go out there and say, "Hey, go look into the next person's eyes you see pretty deeply and tell me how you feel about them," but or tell me what you get from them. But like you can tell there was a little bit of a wide-eyed look, and maybe that's just him naturally. I have no idea, but again, first impression. Don't want to, say too much. Not a negative thing about Sam Darnold, but you can kind of get the kind of these kind of the aura that okay, like he might be a little overwhelmed initially, where he knows he has a ton to prove still. He's failed really twice for two teams. Like he's got to succeed here. And that may take time. That may be a backup role here. I know many fans want that to be. Many fans think he sucks, which He hasn't proven too much in the NFL yet. And, myself included, would like to hope Trey Lance can win this job. And I think, again, after day one, day two of OTAs, he's the leader in the clubhouse. Now, what does Shanahan think? I have no idea. But you can tell that if the pecking order was done today, in my opinion, it would be, if healthy, obviously Brock Purdy, but Trey Lance, then Sam Darnold. That's basically all we got from the quarterbacks. Again, the mechanics, I think, were fine. They were more refined and cleaned up for Trey Lance. It looked faster, quicker, again, more compact, more ready to make a throw in the face of pressure. We will see that once, again, he does get some defensive ends and some of the big boys in front of him, putting their hands up and pushing that offensive line back. But we're not going to really see that until training camp. So every OTAs, unless they change something, is going to be kind of this non-contact, nobody gets hurt kind of, practices where it's like, get your reps in, but take it light, work hard, but, don't push too hard, if you know what I mean. But I will say this, that there were a handful of veteran players that you could tell wanted to set the tempo for not just this practice, but for the entirety of OTAs and training camp, that we're going to come in here and we mean business. Now, among them was Christian McCaffrey. It was actually pretty funny, and I have no idea his name. But there was a guy in the press conferences who asked the same question the exact same way to every single player in Coach Shanahan. And I was like, all right, dude, like, we get it. Like, you have a story to write, but like, you could ask the same question over and over and over again. Like, come on. Okay. Like, I was sitting there and I was like, this question again? Like, really? But to the person's point, and again, all due respect, like, he had, the question was fine, but because what he was saying was true. And the question really was, as a player or a teammate, what is it like to have someone like Christian McCaffrey out here who's been in the league plenty of times, has nothing left to prove, can easily take these days off like Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams and Javon Hargrave and Ufunga and many others, but he's out here grinding, wanting to set it, prove a point to kind of set the tempo for the the OTAs and training camp. And alongside him would be, guys like Dre Greenlaw on the side field, Fred Warner kind of having a looming presence amongst the defense. Again, guys like Brandon Ayuk, he was out there, and George Kittle. Like, enough cannot be said as to how much the veteran players on this team not only care about, playing in the games, but also they know how important the kind of the throwaway days may be for a team like this, where they had been so close so many times, whether it was losing in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs or against the Rams and the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. They know it's days like that make the difference in winning and losing big games, barring crazy injuries like Brock Purdy. But to have players like that amongst undrafted guys like Trey Lance, who have had the weight of the world on his shoulders, but hasn't done much with it, to have guys like Kittle and Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey, even Elijah Mitchell was there, like, working hard, grinding, guys who you could easily say, hey, take time off. Like, we know who you are. We know what you can do. Like, they want to be there because they know that the impact they have on the field should also carry to off the field and in the locker room. And when a player take, Kalen LeBourne or Ronald Waite, running backs, undrafted guys, see that. Guys like Ty Davis Price and Jordan Mason see that. They go, man, like, he might be ahead of me on the depth chart, but he's out here grinding. I need to work harder. What does it mean for, guys like Danny Gray to see Brandon Ayuk out there working their butt off on day 2 of OTAs, where Brandon Ayuk can say, I have my 5th-year option picked up. I don't need to be here. But that's a message that, not only the players have, but really comes down from the head coaching and the GM offices. Like, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have devoted their life to football. These players, up to this point in their life, have devoted their lives to football. And you can tell that, yes, you have an off season to relax and get your body in shape, but, to have guys like Juaun Kinlaw and Drake Jackson be in the best shape of their lives and have worked really hard, Trey Lance back off the injury. Like, there really is some inspiration you can take from guys like Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Elijah Mitchell and Dre Greenlaw, and George Kittle being on the field, knowing they don't have to be. And again, like, that stuff permeates through the entire team, and you never know who you are going to have to rely on. Like, Juaun Jennings had tightness in his hamstring. Brandon Ayuk later in the OTAs got a little tightness, took some time off. Like, you never know who is going to go down. You could need 4 or 5 quarterbacks, right? And all those guys have to be ready. And so to see guys out there that are, busting their humps to kind of, work their hardest means a ton. And I do think it is a really good example of not only the players themselves, but the point that Shanahan and Lynch have made when they've constructed the roster. We need not only good players, but good people who want to work hard and impact the entirety of the roster. But before we end today, I do want to kind of get into some guys that were quietly or quote unquote winners. You might say some losers too. I guess you might, again, it's day 2 of OTAs. I mean, I don't know how many wins and losses you could have on day 2. And really, when it comes down to it, you cannot put too much stock into day 2 of OTAs. It was more of a day to see Trey Lance's mechanics and be out there for the first time in over a year or under a year, excuse me. But I do want to kind of shout out guys like Kalia Davis, who didn't play at all last year. He was hurt towards ACL in college on the PUP list last year. There were hopes he can get back on the practice field last year. Didn't work out late in the year, but he was out there today. You can tell, like, he was chasing guys down with no helmet on during or late in the OTAs, like chasing guys 40 yards away, running down running backs. Like, this guy can move. He really can move. And I know they've compared him to DJ Jones in the past, which I don't love that comparison because, DJ Jones was this cannonball-like player. But if Kalia Davis is doing that stuff, then okay, I see it. Like, I really do see it, where if he's this kind of this big, hulking, bulky, just kind of, shot out of a cannon style defensive lineman, like, I can see that happening. And at least, again, it's one time, it was one play. You need to stack up the days here, but Kalia Davis did look, like somebody that, at least, again, in one practice, one day, like, he did look like an athletic, cannonball style, light the fuse defensive lineman. Want to see more of it, hope to see more of it. Again, guys like Danny Gray, it seems like with Danny Gray, again, it's one practice. And last year he got no reps, really. Really none at all. But you have to finish. And I like Danny Gray. I mocked him to come to San Francisco from SMU 2 years ago. Like, I wanted him to be here. I thought his skill set matches what San Francisco wants to do offensively over the middle, and he's so freaking fast. Just take a deep shot and see where you can go with it, right? But you have to finish. And again, one day, one practice, he didn't finish very well. And what I mean by that is, when you burn a defensive back, a rookie defensive back, not only as a receiver who's in their second year, kind of like, welcome to the NFL, rookie. Like, you want to make not only yourself look good, but to a certain degree, you want to make somebody else look bad, because then it makes yourself look better. And it's a teachable moment to say, hey, defensive backs coach, hey, Steve Wilks, teach this kid better. Like, I burned him because of a simple go route. Tell him where to put his hands, to where to get his feet, and, do whatever you have to do to kind of figure things out for him. And Danny Gray, when you burst by a guy because you got 4.3, 4.4 speed, and that ball's in your hands and you drop it, like, that's stuff that gets you in the doghouse. That's stuff that, makes you unplayable. Now, again, it's day 2 of OTAs. A lot of work to go. He can make, that could be, the 10th, play of the 9 of 10 he caught, right? That could be the one catch or one pass he drops that I see. But it was one that stuck out where it's okay, like, Darnold puts the ball on the money and you drop it. Like, those plays are the difference between a win and a loss sometimes. Whereas guys like Debo and Ayuk, And Jennings, who last year we saw kind of had this dropping problem late in the year, but like that's a play where likely they will catch the football. And that's a starting caliber player in Debo Ayuk and Jennings. If you want to be that, you have to finish. Somebody who did, I think, a great job finishing was Diamador Lenore. I know last year he took a big jump, but the physicality, the mentality we saw towards the end of last year has 1000% carried over. The Lenore that we saw his rookie season is not the same guy. This kid, this player, this cornerback that's now starting, opposite of Mooney Ward, cornerback, you can tell he's a dog. That I know he's a smaller guy, but he's not afraid to get inside, to jam you at the line, and really make it, tough for a receiver. We saw what he can do against Seattle, against bigger receivers. Like we've seen what he can do in the NFL late last year, but this could be an even better year, or at least a continuation of what we saw last year, because the mentality is the same. He wants to come in, he likes to work, he works hard, and you can tell that when a player has confidence in themselves, they're like, usually you're an entirely different player. And you can tell Lenore has a lot of confidence in himself, and it's really, really good to see. Somebody else I thought was a pretty funny story, because Braden Willis's dad, I'm a big Willis fan in general. I'm also a big Oklahoma Sooner fan with family back there in the Midwest in Ponca City, Oklahoma. Shouts out. But I'm a big Willis fan, and his dad actually tagged me on Instagram saying, "Thank you for being so supportive of my son, Braden." And so I was, I had, my eyes out looking for Braden Willis at OTAs. And there was one play where he really stood out, and it was really nice. And there was a second play pre-snap where it wasn't so great, because the first play, kind of talked about it earlier, where Sam Darnold throws behind him. He reaches back one-handed, kind of dives back and catches it one-handed. Great play. Maybe saves a turnover. Good stuff. The other play was pre-snap, where they're lining things up, and this comes with learning the playbook. And it was guys Chris Conley and Braden Willis, where Shanahan on a walkie walks out, stops the entire play, and is like, "You got to line up over here." So I thought it was funny. It was more of an instructional moment for a young player like him, trying to kind of find his place in the offense. And, it's kind of goes into show, look, you can make a great play like Willis did. You can drop a ball like Danny Gray did, but you're all trying to learn. You're all trying to kind of better yourselves. You're all trying to get a grasp on who you are in the league, and also what is your role? Where do you need to be? Because when you are where you need to be at, and so is your teammates, that's when things start to flow. That's when you can make big chunk plays, and that's when you start winning football games. And, OTAs really are an instructional period for young players like Braden Willis and Danny Gray. And it's almost like, make your mistakes now. Like, don't be afraid to kind of be called out in front of the entire media and your entire team, because you have to be where you're going to be at. He ain't the first guy. He ain't the last guy. Like, we're going to see that plenty of times. Steve Wilkes was going crazy. Like, DeMeco Ryans was not very vocal at OTAs. Soft-spoken guy, one of the kindest person you'll ever meet. Steve Wilkes, again, haven't heard him talk yet, but a very kind person, I'm assuming. He was out there like, "You guys got to get in here. You got to line up this way and that way." And it was like, there is fire under that man's belt, and it was awesome to see. The last person I'll shout out today, and arguably had the best day 2 of OTAs, and I think there's lofty expectations on this player, because he's replacing, at really, now that Robbie Gould's gone as well, the longest tenured 49er. That is Jimmy Ward. Isaiah Oliver in the nickel was awesome. There was one play that stood out to me amongst many, but one where he got beat. He really did get beat. And it was kind of a crossing pattern. He's lined up in the nickel, guy takes the corner and goes across the field, right? And he got beat, but he was able to go, "Okay, I got beat." Many guys, when they get beat, they'll look for the ball. Where's the ball at? Where's the ball? No. He put his head down and caught back up to the receiver, knocked the ball out of the air, and got a pass deflection. And that's a sign of a veteran player, but also a player who is like, look, like, I'm a bigger guy. I'm a slower, lanky, taller, larger nickel cornerback. If I mess up, if I get beat, I have to get on my horse to make up for it. And he did. And I thought it was a huge play. He had multiple pass deflections. The closing speed was great. Like, he looked, a lot of questions are, is it going to be Luter? Is it going to be Oliver? Is it Womack? Is it Ambry Thomas in the nickel this year? The assumption is it's going to be Mooney and Lenore outside and Oliver in the nickel. And again, 1-2 days of OTAs, Oliver looked like, when it came to making pass deflections and, making up for maybe a misstep early, he looked like a shining star on the defense and could be, through 2 days of practice, another huge signing for San Francisco, whereas they might be better in the nickel than they were last year. He looked really, really good. Didn't see much of Jair Brown. I'm not going to lie to you. I spent a lot more time watching the offense and Trey Lance and the running backs and the receivers in my first day there, hoping to get a better glimpse of the rest of the team whenever I go back to OTAs. I believe next week sometime. Hopefully I can go back next week. But it was a good day at OTAs, a fun day. The mentality, and you could tell there was like, oh, thank God football's back. Through the team, through the media, like, everybody was excited to be there. I'm sure many of them just wanted to see Trey Lance, and many of them won't be there come the next time that media can go back. But you can tell there was kind of this, like, football is back. There's the sky is blue. There's flowers on the ground on the hills of Santa Clara. It's not too hot. There's a breeze in the air. It smells like freshly cut grass. You can tell it was okay. Like, we are inching closer and closer back to the best time of the year, and that's football season. It was a good OTAs, a good practice, a lot to learn from. Thank you to Clint Cohen of San Francisco 49ers PR team for letting me get access there. It was a really fun day, hoping to go back, hoping to bring you guys more content, hoping to bring you guys more insight. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts at. And do me a favor, don't forget to leave a like on the episode itself or the video on YouTube. Also share, leave a review, help the podcast out itself. If you have any questions, if you want me to look at a certain player for you, you can DM me on Twitter at 49ers_access. You can also DM me and follow us on Instagram, 49ers.access. If you want to go to an OTAs, if you want to go to a training camp once they open them up to the public, or even a game this year, use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Save yourself $20. It'll at least pay for your parking somewhere, whether you're going to Levi Stadium or elsewhere. You can also use our Fanatics link in the description, or at the top of the screen here, you can see our promo codes and links as well. Put that into your browser. That also can get you some Niners gear and support the show in the meantime. That being said, day 2 of OTAs is wrapped up. It was a great day. It was a good day. My name is Sterling Bennett. Again, one more time, leave a like, leave a review, tell your friends, whether it's on YouTube or Apple or Spotify. Thank you for listening to today's show, and we hope to get to OTAs next week for you and myself to share everything we've learned and saw as we build up the training camp in the preseason. And once again, my name is Sterling Bennett. This has been the 49er Access Podcast, and stay faithful.